Hello, welcome back to Studio Vlog 11. So today I'm actually making a canopy for my booth because I'm trying to get ready for conventions and I do have a convention in August. So hopefully that happens. I actually got this idea from Kawaii Art Cafe with my friend Kathleen. Go ahead and check her out. She's absolutely adorable and lives in Connecticut. She's awesome. She's awesome. I love her so much and she's such an inspiration, so totally go ahead and check out her YouTube channel. I was inspired by her booth, and I've also inspired by quite a few other convention artists. I've seen a couple convention artists do something similar, so I wanted to do mine, but with like my Halloween themed colors. And I found a video on YouTube. I'll see if I can link it. That actually helped me figure out the sizing of the PVC pipe, as well as the sizing of the fabric that I needed, as well as what kind of materials I needed and all that. So I went ahead and got that PVC cut at Home Depot, and then it had like markings on it, so I went ahead and bought acetone. The person that in the video did it used like this heavy duty like Home Depot acetone that they bought, but I don't have the space to do that kind of acetone, it's stronger. So I just bought like nail polish remover, really good nail polish remover, and literally day by day I took off the markings as best as I could. She also spray painted her PVC pipe white afterwards, but I don't have the space to do that either. I live in an apartment, I don't have a garage space, so I just tried to take off the markings as best as I could with acetone and a cotton ball until I could, get all of the markings off. By the way, excuse the bells. As y'all know, I have cats and they were bells so we don't lose them. So they're jingling around right now, as always, whenever I have to do voiceovers. So, anyway, yeah, so just use acetone and try to get those markings off. I got literally just Walmart acetone, but the good kind. As you can see that bottle right there, it's a brand that they even sell at Sally's. So I did that, and then I wiped them down with like a Clorox type wipe, with a cheaper kind. I didn't want to use Clorox on this. And then afterwards, they were a little staticky, which is why you spray paint them, but I also didn't want them to be super tight because I do have problems putting these on by myself, especially if I'm, vending by myself that day. 2 yards of duck cloth, white duck cloth, off of Joann's, and I did it for pickup. I do apologize if there's some lagging on this video. Sometimes when I time lapse it, I don't know what ends up happening, but I had to measure out a specific measurement. Like I said, I will link that video below that I used to make this canopy, and I used the duck cloth as my underneath layer, but what they ended up doing is they ended up painting the duck cloth. So that was an option, but I actually wanted fabric, so I had to cut out the duck cloth a certain size, and then I also had to go ahead and figure out what sizing the fabric was going to be. I did need some help. I needed rulers, I needed tape measures. I used all sorts of rulers I had around my house to kind of just make it straight. I know it looks lopsided on here, but I had to work with the space that I had, so it was a little lopsided by camera view, but it actually ended up straight. So I had a lot of fun doing this. It was a lot of work and my back definitely hurt. I did finish the canopy thing in one entire day though, and then I went ahead and cut it with fabric scissors. Then once I cut it, it came down to the point where I had to completely flat iron the edges by 1/4 inch, just so I could go ahead and sew. And this is the trick I always use. So I sew things all the time. I'm a cosplayer, and one of the things when I first started sewing was, what can I do to make my life easier instead of having to pull out the ironing board, pull out the iron? And I'm a very tiny person, so it's a lot of work. So I went ahead and just used my hair straightener, and ever since then, I use my hair straightener to pretty much iron anything that's small like this, especially creases. So I recommend using a hair straightener if you're going to be making one of these canopies to straighten out that duck cloth, and just not have to worry about having a giant iron and have to take out the ironing board, I had no problem whatsoever, and I use this for pretty much anything that has fabric. That is a small area, or as small as my iron. Afterwards, I had to go ahead and sew it, so I'm sewing it all the way around because I want to make sure that everything's nice and aligned, even though I'm going to be cutting it and I'm going to be adding fabric on top. I did have to go ahead and take out the iron and the iron board because I needed to make sure that there was no lines or grooves at all on this. So I did end up taking it out afterwards, but like I said, this was for a bigger area, so I did need it. You want to make sure that everything's completely flat, and once everything is completely flat, we're gonna end up mapping out where little, like, I don't even know what to call them, the shells or the little flaps for this canopy are going to be. Alright, so after ironing, I went ahead and sat on my actual cloth, and I used this like acrylic measuring board thing that I bought at Joann's. It was about $15, and I used a pencil and just pretty much did lines up and down the entire duck cloth with a pencil. I know it's really hard to see, it's the lighting, I'm so sorry, but yeah, just go ahead and line those up, draw lines all the way throughout because you're going to be making your little flaps, but you want to make sure to have little areas for each one. There was a slightly larger area at the end, which was like all the way in the back, but besides that, all of them were even. All right, so after doing the lines, I went ahead and grabbed a mini paper plate and grabbed a marker and started using the paper plate as an outline to go ahead and make these little flaps. I forgot exactly what they're called, but I'm gonna go ahead and cut them out, kind of like a flower shape all the way around. I'm sorry you can't see it until I start getting towards the middle of the canopy there, but as you can see, they kind of look like little petals, and I'm cutting them out with my fabric scissors all the way around. um, that is where we're going to start kind of aligning the fabric. So I'm using three different fabrics. I'm using green, purple, and black. So to start, I went ahead and laid my green fabric underneath with 1/4 inch, and then aligned it and cut it by that line that was already there. This fabric was kind of see-through, so I was easily able to see where the line was to cut. Afterwards, I went ahead and I lined my second fabric under the next line, aligned it there, and then cut it with 1/4 inch so I could sew as well. And this goes on. I then go ahead and loop over to continue with that petal pattern I got going on, but remember, leave 1/4 inch each. Afterwards, like I said, it was only that last one that was going to be super big, so I went ahead and just pinned this piece down and started doing the different colors with just like the same fabric pattern. So since they were all the same size, I was easily just able to cut them all with that same one, or use any of the other ones that were exactly identical. So this just keeps going, and I keep doing that throughout with every single color. After a while, you will see that I get sick of doing the pins and just start cutting it and aligning it um, as is, but it's because every single one is the same size. I just made sure to count how many I'm gonna have and continued with my pattern of green, black, purple, green, black, purple, and so on. I'm done cutting every single piece, I'm trying to find the exact pieces that I had used, and I'm lining them up on top of the lines that I had drawn up in the pattern that they're supposed to be in. I just had to make sure that the biggest piece, which was the green one, was the proper one for the beginning, and all the other pieces were able to be mixed around. But as you can see, my canopy is starting to come together. Now I'm just overlapping them as they should be, and I am going to start pinning them in the way where the insides are going to be sewn. I am pinning them incorrectly at this time, and I started realizing that I ended up pinning them backwards. As you can see, I'm kind of like zoning out right there, and I was like, I did that backwards. So you will have to fold them in. So grab the first piece, go ahead and fold it over, and then lay it on top of that for a second piece, and then start pinning it on the inside. You're going to continue doing this throughout by pinning that inside piece, because that's going to be the way you're going to sew them together. Remember, you should have left yourself a 1/4 inch seam around the entire thing, so you could go ahead and sew the entire canopy fabric together and then sew it on the actual duck cloth. So be aware to go ahead and continue doing that, and be aware about that 1/4 inch marking if you did not draw it out. And you're going to be doing this until you get to the very end. You will see that I do end up having to fix it, because there was a section where I stopped paying attention to that 1/4 inch amount of fabric, but I am also making sure that it lines up with the line on there. And then as at some point I just kind of stopped paying attention to that. Just be very aware and careful of that. Alright, once you have it completely pinned, you want to make sure your duck cloth is nice and flat. And you're going to go ahead and lay down your pinned pieces of fabric together, and you want to make sure they align properly with the lines you have added on there. As you can see, my right side of the fabric isn't aligning properly after I pinned down the left side, and this is, looking straight on. So the right side is not looking right, and I started seeing that the pieces were kind of jagged in some areas. So I started to see what pieces did I have to unpin, what pieces do I have to fix, and you might have to do some readjustments of your fabric depending on how it ended up. So you'll start to notice maybe it won't go over a certain petal. So definitely take a look of that and be aware of that. After you know that it's all lined up and you make sure that everything works out okay, you are going to go ahead and start the sewing process of these pieces, just straight up and down with your sewing machine on the back. So now we're at the sewing machine, and on the sewing machine, you're just going to go ahead and do a straight stitch, or even you could do a zigzag stitch, but I think I ended up going with a straight stitch all the way up and down of each little piece of each color of fabric, to make sure that each piece sticks together. right, so you just finished sewing and now you have your flat duck cloth. You're going to go ahead and align everything properly and make sure that it works now that it's completely sewn. You are going to have to pin it all the way around the edges. Be very careful to go ahead and properly align as best as you can with the duck cloth that you have underneath. Um, the duck cloth is going to be mainly hidden, so you don't have to really worry about it looking 100% perfect. All you gotta care about is about the top looking 100% perfect. The duck cloth is there for it to be thicker, and you have like a kind of like a tarp layer to have underneath. There was areas that weren't absolutely perfect of mine, but you will see that my actual canopy does end up coming out pretty okay. I really, really like my canopy. Like, I'm absolutely obsessed with it. So, it's more there to guide you and to keep your canopy nice and smooth instead of it being super like wrinkled and also not sturdy at all and just being a thin piece of fabric. So, make sure to properly pin as close as you can. You might need to cut some edges off, as you can see. I am having to cut some fabric off because it doesn't go with the curve that I have. So definitely have some scissors with you just in case you need to do some cuts. Once you have completely pinned, you're now going to go over to the sewing machine and you're going to go ahead and sew all the way around with a straight stitch on that edge. Make sure to go on the edge as best as possible, but make sure you're grasping all pieces of the fabric depending on how much you laid on the back. So I used black thread instead of me having to switch throughout different threads. I felt like the black went well with the theme that I had going on and it didn't look absolutely terrible. You could do one color for each little strand, so I could have done like green thread and then switched with black thread and so on and just switched throughout. Oh, I ran out of thread. Filling up my bobbin time. But anyway, yeah, so you could do that, but I felt like it was too much time. Like this canopy already took me all day long to make, so I thought, why not just do it this way? It's a little less stress, and making this canopy does put a lot of stress on your back already, so it doesn't hurt to kind of minimize that extra step. And also for me, it looked well, so just pick a color that will go well with the colors that you have for the thread and go all the way around. Like I said, once you get to the little petals, it will be a little bit harder, but don't be afraid to stop. Lift up your foot on like the sewing foot and then turn with the corners as best as you possibly can. So now that your canopy is completely finished, you will need some Velcro. I have 2-inch Velcro that I cut right down the middle to 1 inch. Technically when it's cut down the middle, it's about half an inch each, or about an inch. No, 2 inch. Is it 2 inch or half an inch? One of the two. So you are gonna need to go ahead and put those down on each side. You'll put one Velcro piece on one side, and then either the sticky piece or the rough piece, whatever side you want, on one side of the top of the canopy, and then one, like, what is it? I think it's like 5 inches down, and you'll do that a couple times depending on how big your canopy is. I think I ended up doing it 4 or 5 times, and as you can see, I'm sticking it and unsticking it to see that it matches properly. The way you're doing this is with just marking with a tape measure and drawing it out with a marker, as well as then going ahead and you're going to put a PVC pipe through there, which is why I said your PVC pipes actually don't have to be perfect, because 2 are going to be completely covered if you couldn't get the markings all the way off. And I do the same thing with the front here, as you can see, but instead of the Velcro going on the front, it goes on the actual piece, and then one goes on the PVC pipe. So it's a little bit different, and you'll see how I assemble everything together here. But because I already had this Velcro, I use it for cosplay. I said, why not just cut it right down the middle? And as you can see, I'm just pretty much aligning them straight in a line, so I can go ahead and tape down pretty much the PVC, because this is sticky Velcro there on the back. I'm taking off all of the pieces of plastic to go ahead and align it and stick it right down. Alright, and time to build my PVC pipe stand here. So this is the sides that I'm building right now. Like I said, I will be posting the video that I used for reference on this. They end up telling you exactly what pieces you need to buy from the store, as well as what measurements you need, and they'll tell you how to build it. Like, if you see me looking up, I'm actually looking up at my monitor screen that is telling me how to put this together. It definitely takes a couple tries to do it on your own, but I will probably always watch the video, because it's not like I do conventions all the time. Maybe once I do more conventions, then yes, but this is technically going to be my first convention in August, because all my conventions were canceled in 2020, and that's when I was going to start doing conventions, so it's okay to go ahead and take a look at them. I am putting the other PVC pipe through the top, as you can see there, and I'm going to go ahead and place it. So the top PVC that I just placed goes onto that top piece, and then this front PVC goes into the front pieces. I was having a little bit trouble of keeping them on, just because I did not want to spray paint them and possibly get them stuck, so my boyfriend did have to help me a bit, as you can see. But this is how my canopy ended. I can't wait to use it at a convention, and I will link all the links below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope y'all liked the studio vlog. I will see y'all next time. Bye everyone!